Horror Convos, come on in, have a seat, stay a while, take a load off out into the beat. We can just chill, have a drink, say what's on our mind. Never know what you're thinking, hey, it could be neat. Fear is everywhere, in your mind, on the street, in the earth, and the stars. Scary things you left for free. What you gotta say about it? Having fun, you and me. If you got nowhere to go, no place to be, just relax, have a chat, but don't think it's therapy. If you get too afraid, there's a door you can leave. Good night and be well. Maybe talk again, we'll see. Good night and be well. Maybe talk again, we'll see. You can night be well. Maybe talk again, we'll see.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Horror Convos, a casual, relaxing, and occasionally funny podcast where we choose one horror topic per episode and discuss anything related to it that we want. Movies, TV, novels, comics, video games, radio dramas, personal experiences, nothing is off limits here. I often have guests join as we share our opinions and compare examples that portray the subject. New episodes release every other Wednesday. Horror Convos is available to listen to on YouTube and Spotify. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and come hang out at the Horror Convos Facebook page to share your thoughts and leave suggestions. If you want to listen to the podcast without ads, you can go to patreon.com/horrorconvos. Tier 1 membership gets you full episodes ad-free, as well as exclusive content like outtakes that didn't make it into the podcast. Tier 2 membership gets you access to vote on what we discuss in special event episodes. We appreciate everyone who donates to help our little podcast grow. That's patreon.com/horrorconvos. If you'd like to be a guest and have a subject you're passionate about, you can send us an email at keithhorrorconvos@yahoo.com. All one word, all lowercase. keithhorrorconvos@yahoo.com. I can't realistically have everyone on, but will review every email I can. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss when our newest content is uploaded. I'm your host, Keith Harris, and today's episode is something a little different, another little experiment I've been wanting to do for a while. It's sort of a spin-off from the commentary episodes. Today, I'm reacting to and giving my opinions on a few horror trailers, not commercials or TV spots, though I'm not necessarily opposed to those. And I know nostalgia critic Doug Walker has a whole series of commercial reviews. I've seen them all. Good stuff, some funny stuff. This is more focused on movie trailers. I'm going to play them, comment on them as I go, then give my thoughts on their execution, from writing to pacing, editing, music, etc. It's not going to be a long podcast today. I'm sorry. I'm still working on a larger discussion that will finally be ready to release for the next episode. My schedule's been kind of hectic working around this while doing my usual jobs, but trust me, it is almost done. In the meantime, for our first round of horror marketing commentary and review, I'll only be reacting to 5 trailers. I didn't want to start off with a long list, kind of testing the waters with this one. And as a fun little way to build suspense, I'll tell you now that one of the movies whose trailer I'm reacting to today will be a subject in the next episode's discussion. That's right. Which topic will it be? Which movie from this episode is it? That's for me to know and you to guess. Without further ado, pick out your flowers and press F to pay your respects at the grave of the late trailer narrator legend Don LaFontaine. Rest in peace, good sir. We are taking a dive as deep as that man's voice into 5 of cinema's most iconic examples in horror marketing.
In a world, there, I said it, happy.
So first up is Dawn of the Dead, 1978. 3, 2, 1, play. Ooh, that moon. Yeah, little bit of exposition and here, or from the narrator. Yeah, I forget the name of this narrator. I recognize his voice. Yeah, the people it kills get up and kill. Get some of the best dialogue right there, just to fill you with dread over what's happening. Boom! Title card. Yeah, somebody's got to survive. Got to repopulate the earth, baby. And I love this. Like Day of the Dead, I guarantee George Romero was just trying to do that scene of the hands coming through the barricade, but on a much bigger scale. Well, and he subverted the elevator, and he subverted expectations by having them come right through a concrete wall in the underground bunker that time. Hey, Captain Smarty Pants. God, that guy was one of the best characters in this movie, just from his commanding voice and the amount of screen presence that he gave to, and he has such a memorable, profile to him. Like, hey, how did he lose his eye? Did he get bitten? And I guess if he'd gotten bitten, then he would have, shown symptoms of being infected. But God, that Smurf makeup. Haunting, echoing music. Ugh. There's the motorcycle gang. That definitely a great shot to use for the trailer if you want to show the threat of the zombies' numbers. It's kind of explaining that water is wet here with, how much they're spoon feeding the commentary to you. Or I'm sorry, water makes things wet. Oh, I'm sorry, we want to get technical. Just in case you didn't hear it the first time. There is no explicit sex in this picture. However, there are scenes of violence that may not be suitable for anyone under 17 years old. Oh my God, that's funny. So this is one of the best trailers I've seen to both market a movie and set up a sequel. It doesn't rely too heavily on Night of the Living Dead's marketing value to sell itself. It makes smart use of the news studio and scientist interview scenes to establish the stakes, giving just enough exposition about what the zombies are and how they operate for anyone that may not have been familiar with the first movie at the time. This was several people's introduction to Romero's Undead. So a lot of people forget Night of the Living Dead did not become a worldwide phenomenon overnight. Even considering that this was made about 10 years after, Night of the Living Dead, there were a number of people who hadn't really watched the original by the time they went to see this one. So in a way, it's sort of, I guess you could consider Dawn of the Dead in some ways to be the world's first requel, or at least one of the first, because it acts as both a sequel and sort of a soft reboot to Romero's universe, kind of a reintroduction to it for a new generation. And you can perfectly understand this film and its story, even if it's your first Romero movie. Very considerate choice. The brief shots of the chaotic police shootout and the motorcycle gang battle, accentuate the threat level while providing some exciting action. It's smart that you only see brief close-ups of the zombies, particularly since, Romero himself would admit to this, that the makeup in this movie wasn't quite what they wanted it to be. The majority of the shots go by pretty quick or only show the zombies at a mid to long range distance. One little nitpick from me is the trailer narrator spoon feeding the social commentary about consumerism wasn't necessary in my opinion. I think that can be interpreted just fine on its own from the footage and the premise being conveyed of especially with the group of survivors taking refuge in the mall. But it's possible that maybe Romero or the marketing team at the time were just playing it safe there, since they may not have trusted general audiences to get it. I personally don't know how you'd miss it. It wasn't at all subtle. But again, that decision might have been out of Romero's hands, could have just been a marketing decision. And I have watched the making of the original Dawn of the Dead before, like the documentary of it years ago. I don't recall what exactly was discussed about the process behind the marketing. I'd have to rewatch it to find that part. All right, so now we're moving on to the trailer for 2004's Dawn of the Dead remake, one of my personal favorites. Once again, counting us down, 3, 2, 1, play. Yeah, Universal. I love that overhead shot of the neighborhood. Evening, night. Uh-oh. What's the clock counting down to? What's coming? What's happening? Oh my goodness. Yeah, but you're not. Oh. Ooh, yeah, oh my god, oh shit, just hit the fan real quick. That classic stock scream effect. And right here. Perfect tagline to tell you what this is. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. Oh my god, this is such great marketing. This is a very 2000s trailer, admittedly. You can tell by like the color filters and the choice of music they're going for. Oh, I love that with the TVs going out. Yeah, those violins. And it's just like building the dread. God, it's like blink and you miss it shots of these things. I love oh my god, that shot of the crowd. Yeah, and they did a perfect homage to what George Romero did in the original film's trailer with those hands trying to break through the barricade. Yeah, the context has changed, but yet you can see some direct parallels here. That zombie baby trying to... It's a hot take. I wish they had gone further with that zombie childbirth scene with like the zombie baby like actually trying to tear its way out. I mean, maybe that's in poor taste, but oh my god, I love this. The film reel melting and just, oh my god, this just, oh, those hands, that is just perfect thing to go out on. Oh my god, they do not do trailers like this very often anymore. Oh man, coming soon, baby. So this is not only one of my favorite zombie movies right alongside the original Romero classic. I've said before I love them both for different reasons. This is also one of my favorite remakes of all time, and while I have a lot of appreciation for its marketing now that I look back on it, I'm actually so glad I don't recall seeing any of the trailers or TV spots for this movie. As far as I can remember, I went into it totally blind as a kid. I hadn't seen the original classic yet at the time either. All that said, I think this trailer is a prime example of how to not only sell a horror film, but how to sell a remake. Now, there are multiple trailers for this film that I could have chosen. It was kind of a toss-up between this one or the initial teaser, which I've also linked below, so you can check it out if you want to. Ooh, I think they both do an effective job of marketing this as a remake. Speaking in the context of this one, however, what really works for me here is how this movie doesn't depend on the Romero classic to advertise itself. You know, the connections are there from the "when there's no more room in hell" tagline to the hands breaking through the barricade, like I said before, and we get the shots of the mall. But for the most part, Zack Snyder's vision and James Gunn's writing are the dominant influence here. I have heard people who saw the commercials say that this looked so different from the original. They didn't guess what it was until they saw the mall and the tagline and finally the title. Well, you know, it's a very different tone. And this isn't the kind of remake that sets out to try to copy its predecessor by any means. Means the credits in this trailer don't say anything to reference Romero or the original up until the tagline comes in. This advertisement conveys how the creators and Universal believed in this product enough to largely let it stand on its own and be judged on its own merits. I think it also makes a statement, perhaps unconsciously, to send a message to the audience that this is not like the Dawn of the Dead you knew. Like, for you older fans going in, everything you thought you knew about this story is about to be turned on its head in some intense ways. And I love how close to the vest this trailer plays its cards. You know, we start off in relatively plain looking suburbia with a protagonist who looks like someone straight out of one of those romantic medical dramas. She's not like any one of the characters from the original. Well, she's saying hi to the adorable neighborhood kid, relaxing with her husband. It doesn't feel like a zombie film, let alone a Romero film. The mood doesn't read as horror right out of the gate. There's no clear-cut sign to pin down the genre at first. Even the on-screen font saying evening, night, dawn, that's dramatic, but not necessarily horror-coded. It's like when you watch enough horror movies and ads, you can develop an instinct to tell what kind of experience you're in for, even if it's your first viewing just from the font. You know, you could put so many trailers on with the volume muted and still deduce the genre from visuals alone. The trailer for Romero's original Dawn did the opposite, where it tells you right off the bat what it is. I like how this version, with Snyder's version, eases you into it, almost lulling you into a false sense of security, thinking it looks like it's going to be, you know, just another movie, nothing crazy or special, maybe some suburban slice of life fluff. But you can see little clues from the evening, night, and the music that something is building here. And then little Vivian comes back. That eerie music starts quiet, but building. This trailer obviously doesn't show zombie Vivian with the bloody cut up mouth. I respect that choice. Most of the time I hate it when trailers do stuff that isn't in the actual movie, but I'm glad they did that here because that would have given it away. None of the trailers from what I researched, you know, I rewatched all of them that I could find. None of them show much of that version of her from the final product with her mouth all bloody. But even without the gore, you can tell from the flashes we get of her dead-eyed expression, pale skin, and creepy smile that something's off about her. She almost looks like a modern equivalent to the Smurf blue-green skinned zombies from the classic Dawn. You know, this trailer shows Vivian with a similarly kind of sickly colored, almost cartoonishly pale complexion. And right about here is where the audience can see.
All I can tell y'all is that it's about to go down.
And right then, boom, like the first drop on a roller coaster, we are off to the races. Little former backwards roller skating prodigy Hannah Lochner just committed a domestic homicide in her nightgown. Holy prepubescent shitstorm, Batman. Poor Luis Ferreira is binging all 51 episodes of Winging It in heaven now, dude. And from here on, it's like Snyder is just screaming at you, oh, we are going in a completely different direction. Run, Forrest, run! And the dread and melancholy just don't let up. TV's going off the air, leaving you with nothing but that instinctively unsettling emergency broadcast sound. There's a pregnant lady who looks like she's about to get sued by Ridley Scott for an undead chest burster. There's hundreds, thousands of zombies, and they're fucking triathlon runners now. 28 Days Later wasn't a worldwide household name yet. It only came out 2 years ago at this point. Return of the Living Dead had nothing on this shit. This was fucking mayhem to see in theaters, I can imagine, or on DVD with the lights off in my case, with no clue what you were in for. And the best choice you could have possibly made for this trailer regarding the zombies, very little footage shown. And just like the zombies are faster, the trailer enhances this by making you feel like you can't keep up with them. Like the pacing thing, you know, complements the speed. There are no detailed close-ups of the far more realistic bloody makeups here. Oh no, you're not getting spoiled on that here. We just get flashes, quick cuts, fractions, or maybe a quarter of a second. You just see these things swarming, jumping, climbing, that the lighting and contrast and color filter are edited just right, so you only get glimpses of these roided up new millennium ghouls. But that's all it is. Flashes. We get so much visual stimulation, just overwhelming amounts of information, while only having seen the bare minimum to tell us that all hell is breaking loose. And what do we go out with? A beautiful title card with a sharp font, ghostly echo, a visual of the film reel melting. Again, love that. It's just too much. It's too badass for the film to contain. Oh my God. And a final, iconic, haunting image of those shadowy hands just piling up against foggy glass from the other side. Like the only thing separating you from all of these monsters is a thin pail of glass. Just imagine the tension there on your part as a human. A perfect visual to stoke the fires of imagination about the nightmare trying to could break through any second as the numbers keep piling up against that glass until they come through and just devour you. It's genius in simplicity. No blood and gore needed, no fancy makeups, just the existential terror of those shadowy hands, the fear of sheer overwhelming numbers. Fast or slow zombies, that kind of imagery is powerful. Very similar visual would be used in the scene of the horde surrounding a certain pub in a certain British zombie rom-com that came out the same year, by the way. I don't care how much of a Romero purist you are. I don't even care if you hate this remake. That's fine. To each their own. But you cannot tell me with a straight face that this is not a quality trailer. Okay, so third on our list is the trailer for Jaws, and I'm actually not going to commentate on this one just because there's honestly not that much going on in it to really comment over. I don't want to be talking just for the sake of talking, but I will give my thoughts. Much like the immortalized John Williams theme itself, this trailer is just maximum impact in minimalism. Again, genius in simplicity. The killer's point of view underwater camera sequence works well. Oh yeah, this film did that before Halloween with Michael Myers, by the way. I think the first horror film I know of that did it was probably Black Christmas. But this has that unique novelty of being underwater. And the sequence works so well, showing what the creature sees as it swims along with the ocean floor being all dark, gloomy, and foreboding to complement the music. This trailer doesn't go into the more intense parts of the song either. I like that it sticks mainly to the opening notes, keeping things subdued and building dread. Unlike, other trailers that showed more of the plot, ratcheting up the song as the footage on screen builds the adrenaline. The closest we get to that here is the footage of Chrissy Watkins screaming, but it still doesn't linger on that. Cuts pretty quickly to the title card. You can debate whether showing an actual image of the shark from the iconic poster artwork was needed here. I can see valid arguments on that from both sides. If I had to guess, almost everyone who saw this ad back in the 70s would have guessed that the monster was going to be a shark with or without the visual. Once you add the poster to aid the title, or learn about Peter Benchley's book, which is credited by name in the trailer, it's not as mysterious, especially when you get the tagline, it's as if God created the devil and gave him jaws. It's like people were aware that sharks existed in 1975. I don't think this movie invented fear of sharks. It merely perfected it. I personally don't have a problem with the poster showing. I think it paints a picture in viewers' minds of what to expect. It's too bad that the mechanical shark couldn't live up to that image, but for what they had to work with and the new filmmaking technology they had to pioneer to make this work in 1975, I think it turned out okay. Like, I will die on the hill of defending every one of the effects done in this movie, all the way down to the fake-looking shark. I think for how it turned out and everything that was working against Spielberg and crew just to get this thing made, it was incredible what they managed to pull off. Just like in this trailer, Spielberg had to abandon his initial ideas to show a lot more of the shark. His creative vision originally, he planned to show it off in the very first scene, but he ended up having to be a lot more conservative with it. And you know what? If that hadn't happened, we would have gotten a very different movie. So, blessings in disguise. And you know what? With both the movie and this trailer, I think the less is more approach was just about the perfect way to go. Even if they'd had the technology to do a better shark, I'm glad that what we got focused on it sparingly. Other trailers for Jaws that showed some of the shark, I don't think they worked as well in this regard, because you're giving away the star of the film when your star is already pretty limited. If the marketers thought, well, we have to give the viewers something, then, just show a few shots of the fin or that first blurry image of the head underwater when it grabs that canoer in the estuary, after knocking him out of his boat. It would tell that's perfect. Yeah, the more you keep this thing hidden until people actually went to see the movie, the better off you'd be. All right, and now moving on to the next trailer. This one I am going to comment on before giving my thoughts. It gave a little sneak hint to it earlier in this episode. Dude, Shaun of the Dead. We're going with the UK trailer. And 3, 2, 1, play. Another gem from Universal. Starting off with the Figment's Park theme from Dawn of the Dead. I love how this trailer shows right off the bat that it's a love letter to Romero. Simon Pegg was a handsome dude. Some people say that he's ugly. I personally never saw that. And I think he's one of my favorite British actors, and not just in terms of his facial profile, but even without saying anything, I think he just has that instinctively you want to giggle at him kind of demeanor. And when he turns it on compared to just being his normal self in interviews or real life, when he goes into character, it's like you just instantly get this urge to giggle at him. Oh my God, the one-armed man! Someone call Harrison Ford. Yeah, this was one of the first horror movies. It might have been the first horror movie where I ever saw a cricket bat used as a weapon. And this movie made cricket bats look badass. If I had to fight a zombie outbreak and I had to choose between a baseball bat or a cricket bat, I'm going with cricket all the way. It's bigger, probably heavier. It's not as easy to maneuver, but it looks like it carries more heft to it. Sean! Oh, I love that title card with the hand coming into the letter A. God, I remember busting a gut laughing first time I saw that. Oh, and they're going out with the end credits music from Dawn of the Dead too. Romzom.com. Alrighty. So, in case you couldn't already tell, this is one of my favorite films of all time, not just horror or comedy. I think this original UK trailer was as intelligently constructed as the full movie. It doesn't try to build up any mystery of what the story is about or what the monsters are. But by the mid-2000s when this was made, society was at a point where we were already familiar with the concept of zombies, even if they hadn't been mainstream in the zeitgeist for a few years. They kind of fizzled in the 90s after the 80s craze of Return of the Living Dead. And you couldn't really do what Romero did back in the day with trying to tantalize audiences with ambiguity about what the monsters are. You can't recapture what the original Dawn of the Dead accomplished, and this movie, despite being a love letter to Romero, knows that going in. So instead, it doesn't restrain the premise. It only shows restraint with the footage of the zombies. The best ads for most zombie films, in my opinion, are the ones where they don't show off too much of the monsters. You're better off doing that when advertising, zombie video games, I think, like Dead Island, Dying Light, etc. So this trailer, in context of film as a medium, was smart to show them off in moderation. You only get one reasonably close-up shot here of what these things are going to look like in this film, and they choose the one-armed dude with Nick Frost screaming, oh, he's got an arm off. That's the only shot here that lingers on a zombie. Everything else is fast-paced, maybe half a second of them on screen, similar to what, the Dawn of the Dead remake's marketing did. Or they're kept mostly obscured behind a window, like the window in the Winchester, or in darkness, like the famous scene with Sean and Ed singing at the ghoul slowly limping in the background outside the pub. I also appreciate how, despite this being a very unapologetic celebration of zombie movies, this trailer focuses more on establishing the main character, what he's about, how he fits into all this, and how the stakes of the situation are going to set up his character arc. We also get some similar build up to Dawn of the Dead with the emergency broadcast expositing the stakes while balancing that with the humor of how the characters react to this unfolding crisis. There's some smart choices with showing the one-armed zombie terrifying Sean and Ed enough to get their asses off the couch. Which, move couch potatoes, move. There's a glimpse of the vinyl records, the incompetence with the rifle, all these bits of levity to illustrate the novelty of how this slacker Sean plays against the typical action hero survivor archetype, despite his best efforts to transform himself into one, rising to the occasion. That's one thing I love about this movie, is Sean is a certain archetype of a protagonist trying with all his might to make himself into a different archetype of character. He's trying to be something that he's never tried to be before, and ultimately, he really isn't. He kind of fails consistently almost to be the badass action hero that he wants to be to save everyone. But it's endearing because of how hard he tries and the personal arc that he goes through of, going after what he wants and taking life more seriously. And at the same time, while it is a comedy, the trailer asserts to you the danger factor that this is very much a horror movie as well as a romantic comedy. It's not going to be all fun and games, which again, the gore that we see from the one-armed zombie gets that message across. The international trailer, which I've also linked below just because I thought it was interesting to look at the differences in it, that trailer doesn't succeed as strongly with all of this. I get that the marketers with that one were trying to be more palatable for selling it to general audiences. They had to tone down the blood a little bit probably. But part of why the UK trailer works so well to me is, again, the intelligence of knowing how much to show, and whatever they do show you, it's there front and center. The UK trailer doesn't edit the crap out of itself to conceal explicit material. The marketers just made smart decisions with what shots to pick. The international trailer, by contrast, shows way too much at some points and far too little at others. It's overly edited. They show the one-armed zombie, but the footage speeds up to conceal the missing arm, and they focus on the guy's face instead, which, by comparison to the missing limb, the makeup is rather generic. I would argue that was deliberate on the production team's part to make that ghoul look like a pretty tame makeup until you look at his arm and see, hey, what's wrong with this picture? I just don't buy the illusion the international trailer depicts that a fairly generic looking zombie, if the only thing zombie-ish about it was the makeup, would freak Sean and Ed out with that strong of a reaction, unless there was something distinctly inhumanly gruesome about him. So, they undermine one of the key shots with one of the best zombies. I believe they're called the hero zombies or hero makeups in the special effects industry. You cut out what makes that image effective, yet you show off so many other zombies that this particular one ends up being trivialized. I'm kind of harping on that, I know, but it's such a small but impacting and really counterproductive choice to me from a marketing standpoint. And the trailer does give similar setup to Sean's character, but again, I think the UK trailer did it better. The pacing is just better. That's the best way I know how to explain it. You can compare both trailers for yourself and tell me what you think in the comments if you agree with me. And for the last trailer of this episode, we are reacting to film that I've had a mixed relationship with, but I've come around to love more and more each time I see it. 2014's The Babadook. Okay, and for the last time, in 3, 2, 1, play. Read us a little dead time story. If you got that reference, congratulations, we can be friends. Have a cookie. I love this book so much. It's like one of the best props in modern horror. I linked a video below about the guy who illustrated it. Oh, God. Just Jennifer Kent, you really pulled it off with this one, and so did the illustrator. I'm not going to even try to butcher his name, but yeah, he talks about how he designed the illustrations and provided the template for its construction. Got a little MacGyver here. God, I love the tension building up with the book and how it parallels how the characters are reacting in the real world. But it's like, this is one of the best horror films I've seen in terms of the concept of fiction or imagination bleeding through into real life. It has almost a American McGee's Alice in Wonderland kind of vibe to it, just that dark fantasy juxtaposed by initial sort of childlike whimsy. Yeah. Live action Babadook, I would say, was a bit underwhelming compared to the children's book. I kind of wish they'd gone a little bit more out there with his 3D design. But you could make the argument that, that more minimalist approach with the live action actor was a deliberate choice. Maybe, there are points where the human form it has kind of gets more monstrous, but God, this is like one of the best Australian horror films I've ever seen. Nothing against Wolf Creek, but yeah, you need help, all right? Yeah, whatever you're on, it's not working. Oh, God, that was the perfect vocal effect to go out on. I love that they don't show the live action actor's face. Honestly, I've said before when I was a guest speaker on Horror Movie Talk years ago, I have a mixed relationship with this movie. On one hand, the kid annoys the shit out of me, but on the other hand, I recognize that he's kind of supposed to. Granted, something being intentional doesn't by default make it good. But I just, every time I watch this film, I warm up to it. A little more and more, the kid's annoying performance included. Nothing against the actor who played Sam. Just in my honest opinion, the majority of child actors historically, they aren't very good. But his performance, he almost pulled it off too well. I think part of why he's such, makes you want to strangle him, is because he just immersed himself so well into the role. That he left he left such an impact on the story that you could really believe Ezzie Davis as this, stressed out, at her wit's end mother, kind of not knowing what to do with him. It's like you can't have it both ways. You can't have a believable character arc for a mother who's struggling to raise a kid having behavioral problems while also having the kid being just consistently pleasant to watch or listen to. You got to have a little bit of uncomfortability there, especially for a movie like this, a story like this. So, I think The Babadook is probably what I'd consider one of the best modern horror films I've seen, and this is what I would consider one of the best modern horror trailers. There's, I say modern as in the 2010s onward. Remember when the 90s were considered modern or recent? Yeah, wasn't that something?
No, I ain't old! I ain't old!
But this trailer somehow rides the line between looking simultaneously modern and timeless. Like, this is a story that could happen to potentially anyone in any generation. I feel kind of similarly about It Follows, which also came out in 2014. There's an old-timey kind of vibe to this narrative that I think the children's book motif complements, especially if you compare it to today when most children's entertainment is digital. Well, you don't get a lot of horror media that focuses around, physical books anymore. And this trailer was smart to focus so much of the visual flair of the book's pages to market this premise. It so easily could have chosen to save most of the book for the actual movie and used scenes not involving it for the ads, or it could have used narration from the book but still not shown much of the imagery, kind of focused more on the live action version of the Babadook as it manifests in the real world. While I am very often a champion for saving most of your best stuff for the complete film to be experienced in the full context, like I've argued countless times against showing off something in the trailer. In this instance, I do think that approach would have hurt the Babadook's marketing because so much of this story's impact comes from the visuals of this twisted children's book. You can't really sell the blend of mature horror and children's fantasy gone wrong as strongly without it. So I feel that a nice balance was struck here between how much of the book we see versus how much the trailer depicts this entity affecting the characters in the real world. There's a very effective, very literal art imitates reality mechanic going on as the images in the book grow increasingly personal, setting up that this thing is directly connected to the mother and son from the beginning, seemingly using the book as a means to summon it or advertise what's about to happen to these two as the fiction gradually bleeds into their real lives. So it really fits the structure of trailers, which by their nature are made to advertise to the audience. And so, there's sort of a trailer within a trailer, almost kind of meta thing going on here. And this keeps just enough details about the entity and its themes in relation to the mother and son ambiguous. The themes are all there to be interpreted, much like in the trailer for the original Dawn of the Dead. But unlike Dawn of the Dead, this trailer leaves room for you to speculate on its meaning yourself. It doesn't spoon feed you the message and everything, just assuming you're too dumb as a viewer to discern it. What I really love is how there are multiple possible interpretations to take away from how the story is conveyed in this film's marketing. It's clever how it leaves things open-ended enough for me to think, what does this all mean? Where is this going? Is the monster a representation of the mother's unresolved grief and growing resentment toward her child who gives her such a hard time, while his father, the man she loved, is dead? Is the mom manifesting a split personality that's going to try to kill the kid while she's imagining the other personality as the monster stalking them, leading to some kind of Fight Club or High Tension style twist reveal? High Tension is a good movie, by the way. Is the mom imagining the book too? Is this all in her head? Is that what she means when she says, "I'm sick, Sam, I need help"? Yeah, sorry, Ezzy. I can't do an Australian accent, and I'm sorry. Is that what Sam means when he begs her, "Don't let it in, don't let it in"? Like, he's asking his mom not to let her dark side out? Is this going to become a psychological horror film with some kind of Jekyll and Hyde dynamic where the mom has to confront this manifestation of her inner darkness before it consumes her and kills her along with her child? When I first saw this trailer in college, these are the kinds of questions I was asking myself. Then after watching the full movie, I realized I was on the right track, but it surprised me with the direction it actually went to follow up on these ideas. That all of those interpretations were valid based on what the trailer showed, but the execution of the story went to some places that the advertising misdirected me on, but it did it in ways that worked, that were smart. It didn't feel like false advertising the way so many other trailers I've seen do, because they just didn't know how to market themselves. They were marketed poorly, or they spoil shit that should have been saved for the movie. This is a mark of people who knew how to market a story while telling their own story within the advertising that kind of plays on your expectations. Like, I love when trailers do that and they do it well. And that's a wrap for this episode of Horror Convos. Comment below. Do you agree or disagree with my takes about these trailers? What horror trailers or advertisements should we react to next? It can be a trailer, commercial, or TV spot, whatever. It can be from a film, video game, TV series. As long as it's horror related, it's fair game. Don't be shy with those opinions and suggestions. Remember, this is more than a podcast. It is a dialogue between horror lovers. I'll be looking at more examples of horror marketing in the future, and you can look forward to a juicy conversation with a special guest in the next couple weeks. Here is your regular reminder that Horror Convos is available to listen to on YouTube and Spotify. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, remember to email keithhorrorconvos@yahoo.com. New episodes release every other Wednesday, so please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss when our newest content is uploaded. Until we talk again, good night and be well.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.